So always apply minerals with carbon source. I said that. Apply fertilizer. I don't know what people do as far as fertilizer is concerned. Some people do compost. Some people do compost and chicken manure. Some people do 5-3-4 organic pro mix. Some people do 10-10-10. Some people do nothing. I don't really have a strong opinion about this. I want to give you a recipe for what I use and my rationale, and then you can, add this to your list. You can ignore me. You can, do whatever you want with it. But I don't think it's that important necessarily to add fertilizer. You shouldn't need to add anything. This is the concept. The concept is you shouldn't need to add anything. The more perennial your polyculture is, the more you're emulating nature, the more your crops will be able to provide everything that they need from the environment. The process of adding fertilizer, the process of amending soil, the process of adding foliar sprays, these are crisis management tools. These are techniques for getting better system function than you deserve, getting the plants to be more healthy than they would otherwise be just growing plain in the ground. So with that conceptual framework, I'm going to give you my recipe for a fertilizer why I use it. So basic ingredients are, we'll say gypsum, limestone, rock phosphate, green sand, some sulfomag, humates. I use something called Dynamin, which is a lot like azomite. Some kelp, some sea salt, some alfalfa meal, and some compost. Compost. The alfalfa, the sea salt, and the kelp were all at about 50 pounds. This is per acre. We'll call these 100. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 750. We'll call humates 100 and gypsum 150. Say. Ballpark, 1,000 pounds to the acre. This is basically a broad spectrum mix of goodies. And the story I tell myself is that I'm going to be harvesting out 10,000, 20,000 pounds of crops off this acre. And while that's mostly going to be air and water, some of it's going to be minerals from the soil. And I want to put back what I'm about to take off so that at the end of the year, my soil is still in good shape. This is the story I tell myself. You can tell yourself whatever story you want. I'm getting a nice spectrum of goodies in here. And I put this down right before I prepare the soil. This is what I use for fertilizer. So what I do basically is, depending on the nuances of whether I've got mulch on the ground in the spring, or I've got a dead cover crop, or I've just worked in or rolled over rye or something like that, I will basically broadcast this onto the surface of the soil before I prepare the soil. So say I'm going to be planting salad greens, and I've got a mulch layer that's mostly digested, but there's still a decent amount left on there. I will come through and broadcast this across the beds, and then come through with my rototiller and lightly work it into the top inch or so, really, really shallow. Basically preparing a seed bed where I've got good soil contact with my seeds. I'm trying to minimize the destruction of the soil life as much as possible, and then I'll broadcast my seeds and rake them in and water, and I'm done. If I was to be transplanting kale or collards or tomatoes or cucumbers, I might chop my holes for my seedlings in that bed that has residue of cover crops on it or whatever. I might put a little handful of this in that hole, or broadcast it around, sort of chuck it in the vicinity of the hole so some goes in and some goes around. Just for memory's sake, when I'm putting in my tomato plants, I'm putting in one plant every 5 feet. Right, I'm literally putting in one plant every 5 feet, and they're basically about 5 feet this way also. So, depending on what your timings are and all that kind of stuff, you don't necessarily need to put this in everywhere. This might be a little bit of goodies right around the hole to get things started. I know that pot growers, who are apparently some of the best growers in the country, period, bar none, full stop, end of conversation, are really sophisticated about how they facilitate the development of the root systems in plants. And I'll just give you a quick schematic from a friend of mine who was explaining this to me. I was like, oh, that makes sense. Huh, that's a really good idea. I'm going to tell people about this one. So imagine this is a tomato plant, right? It doesn't have to be a pot plant, it can be anything. You start out putting, whatever it needs around here. And these are lines of drip. So the one line of drip goes on the middle of the bed, and then 2 lines of drip go on the outside of the bed. And so this may be more applicable for drenching and watering and things through the season, but conceptually, you put things, in the outside vicinity of where the root ball is, and then you want to basically inspire the plant to keep growing out. And so, what they'll do in the example is to start off with is they'll irrigate this first line of drip, and then 2 weeks later, stop irrigating out of this line and start irrigating out of these 2 lines. And so make it an environment where the plant actually has an incentive to reach its roots outwards long before the plant is anywhere near that big. The more rapidly you can inspire the plant to establish a broad root system, the more confidence you should feel about the end of the season and how your plants are going to be doing. So this is not necessarily entirely applicable to this situation, but a conceptual piece I think there anyways.